Well, junk in your trunk is now weighing the entire global economy down, as if I didn't have enough to worry about. That's according to a United Nations warning out today, claiming that your fat you-know-what is hurting the world's bottom line through increased healthcare costs and productivity loss. In fact, that is the UN's way of taking my picture, putting it outside its entrance, and just saying, have you seen this man? Former McCain campaign director Ford O'Connell says, surely the UN has better things to do. I guess they do not, Ford. In the middle of all these crises and, the Middle East about to blow up, there are other things on their mind.
Well, that's absolutely right. This report out by the UN reads like a Mike Bloomberg nanny state special on a global scale. And frankly, the prime goal of the UN is for peacekeeping. And with 100,000 dead in Syria, and with the worst protests in the last decade in Turkey, and with possible war between Iran and Israel, and possible war between South Korea and North Korea, I think that they're not doing a real good job on their primary goal. And that's not even the best part, Neil. The best part is the United States funds 25% of the UN activity. So, yes, you're my tax dollars being wasted. And let me tell you something else. The UN is about as It basically is about as efficient as the GSA on steroids. So that should leave a lot of people with some love at home.
The General Services Administration there. But, Ford, I was thinking, trying to understand and give them the benefit of the doubt on this, that if there was a global concerted effort to rein in, let's say, on obesity, that has been linked to a variety of diseases, that there might be some good to come of it. And since they can't get their hands on any of these global crises, including what to do in Syria, where the guy is, killing his people, and what to do in North Korea, where the guy is hoodwinking his people, then maybe this is something we can do. What do you make of it?
Well, I think what they're trying to say here is that essentially if we can tackle malnutrition, undernutrition, the global bottom line will be better. The problem is with this report is it identifies a long-term problem, provides no real fixes, and essentially it's going to take a lot of buy-in from a lot of different governments. I'm not saying it's not an altruistic good thing to do. I'm just saying the ability to accomplish this is just short of, well, Narnia. It's not really going to happen. But I get what they're saying, but at the same time, a lot of individual countries should be very worried about this, and frankly, they're not paying attention. And that's really my problem. For the UN to go in there and tell them to do this, they're not going to do it. All they're going to do is ask for more money from the United States, and given the waste, fraud, and abuse in the UN, guess what? It's going to go somewhere else.
And I'm beginning to wonder if globally, certainly in the United States, the pendulum is turning away from big government, because in this country it seems to produce some scandalous behavior. And in many places abroad where they're saying, these promises that they're made, years ago, they're just unrealistic, and we can't keep them. And a lot of folks are saying that in the process of keeping them, it's cost them through the nose to provide them. So there might be a global backlash against this.
Well, there very well could be a global backlash against this. My issue with the UN is it tries to do some good things. Unfortunately, it doesn't work by the golden rule, which is those who give the gold get to make the rules. And essentially, the U.S. sort of pushing in any sort of way in the goal, within the UN isn't really going to work out. And I think essentially there could be some backlash from the UN telling people what to do. Individual governments around the world should be concerned about undernutrition and malnutrition,
but
and improving their societies.
But wacky is the idea that they are telling the U.S., or you seem to have the most money. You deal with that. Would be like someone treating you out to dinner and you bitching about the size of their tip. In other words, like, shut up, right? I mean, it seems to be simple.
Exactly. It's gotten out of control. Nobody knows what's going on. And what's even worse is essentially many of the members within the UN who just want to keep plucking money from the governments that are giving, like the U.S. and some of the other bigger countries, are essentially not even paying their own dues. They're forcing us to make the rules. It's not a very efficient society. And essentially the UN may have a great mission, but the question is whether or not its time's passed.
All right. Thank you very much, Ford O'Connell. Always good having you, my friend. The former John McCain campaign director, Ford O'Connell in Washington.